Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting pandemic edition of Cannabis Common Sense. I'm recording this on the last day of June 2020, so you're watching it in the future. We're pre-recording these. We used to do our show just live, but now we are recording in our office and then we're putting it together. Our friend Aiko, he puts it all together and uploads it to the folks at Open Signal, where it plays locally on cable television, and then we upload it to the internet. It plays locally at 8 p.m. on Portland's cable channel 11. But anyway, this week I want to remember for just a moment a Harvard medical school professor, Lester Grinspoon. Lester Grinspoon was a pioneer for medical marijuana after his son in early 1970 became ill with cancer. And he wrote an influential book, Marijuana Reconsidered. He helped many people around the country. I met him several times at the normal conventions and other places. In fact, he even testified at my hearing to suppress some evidence in a medical marijuana arrest back in, it must have been 1992. But anyway, I want to give my heartfelt gratitude to Lester Grinspoon and to his son David and the rest of his family. You know, recently we've had the Black Lives Matter movement taking place, and want to show solidarity for equal rights for Native American people and African American people. The legacy of European refugees, not just here in America or North America or South America, but all across the world, from Australia to Asia and Africa, is a shameful one of racial exploitation. And hopefully this movement and the changes caused by this worldwide pandemic can usher in a better way of doing things. And I am all in favor of expanding individual rights. I'm going to continue to work on making sure that people have more rights than corporations and the government, and that people own their own information. That includes their own DNA. Unfortunately today, corporations hold that they own our DNA. And so I think expanding individual rights is a critical thing before artificial intelligence becomes sentient, which most people agree will be in 20 or 25 years. So, but our show is about marijuana, and it's Cannabis Common Sense for almost 24 years now, since 1996. Our first story tonight is from right here in Portland. Portland's mayor and city council are redirecting $12 million from the police department toward helping communities of color. At least $2 million of those funds are derived from local cannabis taxes and fees. After giving the police $410,000 in the first year for a service coordination team for access to drug and alcohol treatment, there were no cannabis dollars spent on drug and alcohol treatment this year. Last year, police received an increase of well over $1 million, taking in more than $2 million in cannabis tax revenues. Portland, Oregon's Mayor Wheeler, who also serves as the police commissioner, says that this is part of a broader police reform plan in Portland that will defund 3 police units, including the gun violence reduction team, and ban officers from using chokeholds. Mayor Wheeler said, quote, "My privilege as a white man, my privilege as the mayor and the leader of the institutions of power in this community, I believe, shielded me from time to time from the many difficult and uncomfortable truths about our history and about our society," end quote. Mayor Wheeler said. Portland Public Schools said last week they would no longer assign police to the district's 9 high schools or the 2 other school districts inside Portland city limits. Of the $12 million that Wheeler said would be invested into communities of color, $7 million would come from Police Bureau, while $5 million would be dispersed from other not yet identified city funds. The $7 million is less than 3% of the current estimated budget for the Portland Police Bureau. Our next story is out of Princeton, New Jersey. 70% of Americans say that it's morally permissible for adults to smoke marijuana, regardless of the plant's legal status, according to nationwide polling data compiled by the Gallup organization. Boy, I'm glad I'm no longer morally unacceptable. That's an increase of 5 percentage points since Gallup last posed the question in 2019. Among those respondents who identify as ideologically liberal, 83% said the use of marijuana is morally permissible. Among those who identify as ideologically conservative, 51% opine that marijuana use is morally acceptable. Public opinion continues to drastically evolve in favor of marijuana's legal and cultural status, and it's time that the federal laws evolve as well. As we approach Independence Day, it's reassuring to see that majorities of both sides of the ideological spectrum agree that adults should be free from the shackles of marijuana prohibition. Politicians in Washington should take this opportunity ahead of the 2020 elections to move forward with legislation like the MORE Act to both amend this failed policy and address the inequities and injustices it's brought for generations, particularly against communities of color. The next story is out of Richmond, Virginia. Legislation passed this spring decriminalizing marijuana possession offenses and sealing the records of past convictions for public view takes effect on Wednesday, July 1st. Probably you're watching this after that. While we applaud Governor Northam of Virginia, his administration, and the legislature for taking this important first step, it's critical that Virginia work swiftly to legalize and regulate the responsible use of cannabis by adults. For too long, young people, poor people, and people of color have disproportionately been impacted by cannabis criminalization, and lawmakers must take immediate steps to right this past wrong and undo the damage that prohibition has waged upon hundreds and thousands of Virginians and Americans and people around the world. Under the new law, activities involving the possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana are classified as a civil, not criminal offense in Virginia now, punishable by a $25 fine, no arrest, and no criminal record. Such activities had previously been classified as criminal misdemeanors, punishable by up to 30 days in jail, a criminal record, and the possible loss of driving privileges. In 2018, Virginia's police made nearly 30,000 marijuana-related arrests. The new law also explicitly seals the criminal records related to misdemeanor marijuana possession from employers and school administrators and defines substances previously considered hashish as marijuana. 27 states and the District of Columbia have either legalized or decriminalized the adult use of marijuana as of today. Out of Missouri, about 600 Missouri medical cannabis patients are at risk of losing their program licenses after state regulators found the applicants had submitted physician certification forms with an unauthorized signature. Missouri regulators' investigation found no evidence that the affected patients were aware the physician listed on the certification was not the physician who met with them. The department indicated that affected patients will be notified and given 30 days to submit valid certification to the state of Missouri, and the case has been referred to the Missouri Attorney General's office and the Missouri Board of Healing Arts. Patients who ultimately have their licenses revoked will be refunded a prorated refund of the original registration fee for the amount of time left on their license. While medical cannabis sales aren't expected to begin in Missouri until later this summer, Missouri's industry has been marred with controversy about the relationship between industry applicants and members of Republican Governor Mike Parson's administration. Last month, a whistleblower claimed that a company called Wise Health Solutions, a private company hired to score applications, may have tainted the process and that there are conflicts of interest within Missouri's cannabis regulators. Wise Health is a joint venture of Nevada-based Veracious Investigative and Compliance Solutions and Oakland's Oaksterdam University. As of March 4th, more than 800 appeals had been filed by companies that were denied licenses to operate in Missouri under the medical marijuana law. And many of the appeals argue that the scoring system used in the licensing process was flawed. A review by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch found that some 24 groups, which had each won 5 or more state licenses, had ties to out-of-state cannabis businesses or the Missouri Medical Cannabis Trade Association, whose lobbyist is Steve Tilley. And that's being investigated there in Missouri. Our next story is out of Nevada. State officials in Nevada on Wednesday moved to grant unconditional pardons to thousands of Nevadans with low-level marijuana convictions. The move comes 1 week after Nevada's Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak initially proposed the idea of issuing blanket pardons for persons convicted of minor marijuana possession offenses. Members of the Nevada Board of Pardons unanimously approved an amended version of Nevada's governor's resolution at their meeting this morning. The move summarily pardons an estimated 15,000 people previously convicted of offenses involving the possession of up to 1 ounce of cannabis. Our next story is out of Michigan. An estimated 1 in 4 cancer patients acknowledge using medical cannabis, according to survey data published in the American Journal of Clinical Oncology. Nevertheless, most oncology healthcare providers remain reluctant to formally recommend cannabis therapy to their patients because they do not believe that they are sufficiently educated on the subject. According to the survey, 24.5% of respondents attending an oncology office in Michigan said that they used medical cannabis. Of those, 81% said that it mitigated their pain, 77% said that it improved their appetite, and 73% said that it reduced their anxiety. 55% said that cannabis improved their ability to tolerate cancer treatment. However, separate survey data published in the journal Clinical Oncology reported that many oncology health care specialists remain unwilling to explicitly recommend cannabis therapy to their patients. Investigators reported that 84% of the respondents, quote, believe that they lack sufficient knowledge about cannabis to make recommendations, end quote. More than 6 in 10 expressed concerns over their inability to recommend a specific cannabis dosing regimen to their patients. The latter findings are consistent with several previous studies indicating that healthcare professionals possess significant knowledge gaps with respect to the safety and efficacy of medical cannabis. This study, Medical Cannabis in Cancer Patients, a survey of a community hematology oncology population, appears in this month's edition of the American Journal of Clinical Oncology. Next story is out of Mississippi. Cannabis exposure is not associated with an increased risk of stroke, according to data published in the journal Neurology Clinical Practice. A team of investigators affiliated with the University of Mississippi Department of Neurology assessed whether or not those testing positive for cannabis during a hospital admission screen were more likely to suffer from an acute stroke as compared to those who tested negative. The researchers identified no link between recent cannabis exposure and either an increased or decreased risk of stroke after adjusting for confounders such as age, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. The authors of this study concluded, quote, studies have analyzed the association between cannabis use and acute stroke have provided conflicting results. This is one of the few studies analyzing the association of recent cannabis use and acute stroke using admission urine toxicology tests independent of polysubstance use. Even though our study has limitations, we did not find an independent association between recent cannabis use and the incidence of acute stroke. Further studies utilizing urine toxicology tests with larger sample size and including dosage of cannabis exposure should be done, end quote. This study, Association Between Recent Cannabinoid Use and Acute Stroke, appears in Neurology Clinical Practice. Our next story is out of Jamaica. Federal officials have relaxed rules so that qualified medical marijuana patients in Jamaica can purchase medical cannabis products online from licensed retailers. The new rules, prepared in consultation with Jamaica's Ministry of Health and approved by Jamaica's Cannabis Licensing Authority, allow dispensaries to offer online sales and curbside pickup. The updated rules seek to facilitate the continued operation of medical cannabis establishments during the COVID-19 pandemic. In the United States, dozens of jurisdictions have enacted similar steps in recent months to facilitate uninterrupted retail cannabis access while also encouraging physical distancing. Our next story is out of Israel. Patients who engage in cannabis inhalation for extended periods of time are likely to report reductions in migraine frequency, according to clinical data published in the journal Brain Sciences. A team of Israeli researchers assessed the impact of prolonged cannabis use, a median treatment duration of 3 years, on the frequency of migraine attacks. The majority of the subjects, 61% in the cohort, reported a greater than 50% reduction in monthly migraine attacks following the initiation of cannabis therapy. Those patients who responded favorably to cannabis treatment also reported reducing their anti-migraine medication intake, particularly their use of opioids and tryptamine-based drugs. The authors concluded, quote, "These findings indicate that migraine intensity results in long-term reduction of migraine frequency in over 60% of those treated patients and is associated with less disability and lower anti-migraine medication intake," end quote. Prior research has reported that subjects who frequently suffer from migraines possess significantly lower levels of endogenous cannabinoids as compared to matched controls. The full text of this study, Migraine Frequency Decreases Following Prolonged Medical Cannabis Treatment, a cross-sectional study, appears in Brain Sciences. Our next story is from Austria. The administration of oral THC is associated with symptom mitigation and reduced prescription drug use in patients with severe Alzheimer-induced dementia, according to case reports published in the journal Frontiers in Psychiatry. A team of Austrian researchers reported on the use of synthetic oral THC, or Dronabinol, in a female patient with severe Alzheimer's disease. Low-dose administration of Dronabinol was associated with reduced aggression and anxiety, as well as an overall improvement in the patient's emotional state. This study is called Cannabinoids as Beneficial Replacement Therapy for Psychotropics to Treat Psychiatric Symptoms in Severe Alzheimer's Dementia, a clinical case report. And it appears in this month's edition of Frontiers in Psychiatry. You know, Alzheimer's is also a qualifying condition for medical marijuana here in the state of Oregon. Our next story is out of Chicago, Illinois. Cannabis use is associated with a decrease in inpatient healthcare utilization in subjects with irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS, according to data published in the journal Cannabis. A team of investigators affiliated with Rush University Medical School and the John H. Stronger Jr. Hospital of Cook County, Illinois, in Chicago, assessed healthcare utilization and costs among hospitalized patients with IBS over a 4-year period. They reported that IBS patients with a history of cannabis use were less likely than non-users to undergo endoscopic procedures, average shorter lengths of stay, and average lower costs associated with hospitalization. The study's authors wrote, quote, "Our study is the first nationwide cohort study to evaluate the association between cannabis use and healthcare utilization in patients with IBS. Our study provides evidence to suggest that cannabis use may decrease healthcare utilization and costs among hospitalized patients with IBS. These findings are likely attributable to the effects of cannabis's active compound THC on gastrointestinal motility and colonic compliance," end quote. This study, Association Between Cannabis Use and Healthcare Utilization in Patients with Irritable Bowel Syndrome, a retrospective cohort study, appears in this month's edition of Cannabis. Our last story tonight is out of the United Kingdom. Cannabis use is associated with stabilizing blood pressure in patients with autonomic dysreflexia, a syndrome characterized by sudden onset of excessively high blood pressure. And this study is called Using Cannabis to Control Blood Pressure After Spinal Cord Injury, a Case Report. It appears in the Annals of Internal Medicine. We do have one last story, which is very similar to many others that we've read week by week over the years. This one out of Toronto, Canada. The daily use of cannabis by patients with chronic pain conditions is associated with prolonged improvements in subjects' symptom management and overall quality of life, as well as sustained reductions in their use of opioids, according to data published in the journal Pain Medicine. A team of Canadian researchers assessed the short-term and long-term impacts of medical cannabis treatment in 751 chronic pain subjects. The participants in the study consumed cannabis daily for a period of 12 months. 60% of the subjects reported having no previous experience with cannabis prior to their involvement in this trial. But the patients who were taking opioids prior to their enrollment in the study reduced their daily drug intake over the trial period, a finding that's consistent with many other studies. The investigators observed initial reductions in patients' opioid consumption at 3 months. The patients further reduced their opioid intake at 6 months and again at 12 months. The authors concluded, quote, "Taken together, the results of this study add to the cumulative evidence in support of plant-based medical cannabis as a safe and effective treatment option and potential opioid substitute or augmentation therapy for management of chronic pain symptomology and quality of life," end quote. This study, Medical Cannabis for the Management of Pain and Quality of Life in Chronic Pain Patients, a prospective observational study, appears in this month's edition of Pain Medicine. That's the end of our lengthy hemp news segment for tonight. We have some more archived videos from years past, so stay tuned. Hopefully, we'll be back in our studio one of these days. If you need to reach us for any reason or you need a referral for medical marijuana, we know doctors all across the country and the world. You can give us a call at 503-235-4606 for more information. That's 503-235-4606. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week and help restore hemp. The Emperor of Hemp. So hang on, and we'll be right back. You see this, or a moment of it at least. As soon as they can start that DVD player, I think.
Live TV.
Right. Oh no, they're not going to play it. Well, that's okay. We'll play maybe some of this later, or maybe not. But anyway, welcome to the show, Jack Harrer and Madeline Martinez and Russ Belleville.
Hello, everyone.
Well,
how are you doing out there in TV land?
How are you doing, Madeline?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited and still in tie-dye mode from the Hemp Fest. Had a great time. Listen to you speak on that big stage. You did great.
You did really well, too. It was inspirational. And Jack, of course, I was honored to go on. And Russ, we were all up there.
Just about half the stage full.
Yeah.
Here in front of us.
That's right.
Yeah, really. The whole stage full. We were just
part
talking.
of the
5 minutes. You only got 5 minutes.
That's right. I think I only used like 2.5 of mine. I didn't go my full 5 minutes. I noticed later, but that's okay.
I think I took one of your minutes.
Maybe you got that.
I think Vivian looked at me, and I think I might have took one of your minutes too.
They didn't run me out. I got out before I was pulled off, But that's okay.
And Jack, you're always great on stage. What can I say? You're one of the reasons that you're one of the people that inspired me to be a cannabis activist.
Well, you inspired so many people with your book, which is, you had a book first on rating cannabis, right?
Yes.
And that was like judging
2 years
cannabis
before High Times.
2 years before High Times, like 1970 or so, or
73.
73. Okay, and then when I first met you, there was I'd seen an article in the Yippie newspaper Overthrow called the CMI White Paper. And that was kind of about 3 pages long and laid out kind of the gist of what was the outline of your future book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes.
And it was, what's his name? the guy from New York.
Dana Beal.
Yes, he took them for himself. He said, "Oh, that's so wonderful information. I should have it." And he,
Put it in Overthrow? Is that how that got published there?
And I got really bad.
You got mad at Dana for that? Well,
I don't blame you, Jack. You deserved it.
few people did. I know that then in '85 you wrote the first edition of your book right here in Portland, in River City. And it was, for a while, it was the CMI, OMI white paper, the California Marijuana Initiative, the Oregon Marijuana Initiative. And the first few editions were like newsprint editions.
No.
They were handed out,
No.
right?
The first edition and the second edition were 110-page book.
Uh-huh.
And the third and fourth edition, I've got 90,000 copies for the
campaign for the Oregon Marijuana Initiative in '86.
And that was a newspaper.
Yeah, yeah. I remember every neighborhood they handed those out in. I think OMI won it.
Yes.
That was one of the.
It only won 15 cities.
Yeah.
And
What do they call it? Precincts. Yeah,
Yes.
15 precincts. And those were the ones.
And those were it's handed out twice. And 3 times and 4 times it got handed out because the guys, they 90,000 people, and about 30,000 of them got once, twice, 3 times, and 4 times. We won those by 60 or 70%.
Right. So, how many copies have been sold now, and how many languages is your book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, printed in? I know it was the #1 seller in Germany,
about
too.
100 magazines, and it's in about 750,000 copies in the United States, and about 500 or 600,000 copies overseas.
A lot of them in Germany.
And then there is about 10 or 15 companies, Japan, Korea, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Russia.
So it's in all these different languages.
Yes,
like
but
15
they
different
don't
languages.
pay me.
Well, I guess your copyright's only as good as your ability to enforce it, I think. We have a caller, though. Hello, caller. You're on our show.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, I was curious on when the laws would change in Oregon so someone with bipolar could get medical marijuana.
That's a good question. You know, there is a process where you can go to the state health department and ask that conditions be included. And I know there have been 2 recent hearings to include several different conditions. Have you been to either one of those?
I have not been able to go to either one of those, but Linda Mason did go to represent Oregon Normal and to listen to what was going on. And as far as I know, it doesn't look really good, but we're asking people to submit testimony as to how it affects your bipolar or PTSD. There's a lot of people like myself that actually started using it for anxiety and depression, so we would like to include that, and we're going to continue to pursue it until they allow it in or until we tax and regulate, which we hope to do next.
Because I was under the impression that in California you can, but I'm
Yeah,
not.
you're correct.
That's correct.
That's right. In California, that's the only state where bipolar is covered.
Yes.
As any condition a doctor thinks it's useful for is
Yes.
covered there.
Exactly. I wish that would have been written into the original OMA,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, you know, it wasn't. But we are going to continue to pursue it. Attorney Lee Berger, Portland attorney, and R.N. Ed Glick.
I've been pushing to add those
for it.
conditions.
And and you can go to the Oregon Normal website and find out when the next hearing is.
Okay, so online I could figure out.
Yeah, go to DHS and they'll have public meetings. Scroll down and hit public meetings, and they will have some information for you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, great.
Thank
Bye.
you. Now I am told that now we can play a little clip of the DVD, The Emperor of Hemp. So, check this out.
It's a crisp spring morning in Manhattan. A perfect day for a march down Broadway. But on this day, for this crowd, the Big Apple isn't exactly rolling out the red carpet.
5, 6, 7, 8, marijuana's not today. 5, 6, 7.
There are delays and confusion about where to gather. Mayor Rudy Giuliani waits until the very last minute to issue the necessary permit. But several thousand show up anyway, and eventually this ragtag army begins the long trek to Battery Park. The marchers have all come together this day for various reasons, but with one common voice: to protest the United States policies on marijuana. The marchers are cordially escorted by a phalanx of New York's finest. Or so it seems. Business as usual in America's war on drugs.
They're not going to get rid of us that easy.
For the last 30 years, a hardcore band of activists has been fighting the war on marijuana in what they see as a struggle for truth and justice. One man among them stands apart. He has been described as a cult folk hero, a boisterous rabble-rouser, a crazy man. His name is often mispronounced. He likes to say it rhymes with terror. But one thing is certain. Because of him, we enter the next millennium with a new knowledge of an ancient plant. A plant whose present-day revival was sparked by this man's 1985 best-selling book. The book revealed the lost history of the hemp plant, and in doing so, lit a fire under a legion of followers the world over. Its title is The Emperor Wears No Clothes. Its author is known as the father of today's burgeoning hemp movement. His name is Jack Herer. At 60 years of age, Jack Herer has been stumping for hemp nearly half his life.
Okay, Jack.
The Emperor of Hemp.
That was a great film. That was produced through the aegis of The Body Shop. The lady, what's her name? Anita Roderick?
Yeah.
Anita Roderick? She just passed away recently. That's a shame. So when did this first come out? Was it?
In 2000.
In 2000. Time flies. You've had a stroke since then, but you've come back a long way since then.
About 1 month after.
After this came out, you were here in Oregon with that stroke.
I can't talk or walk for.
You couldn't talk at all for a couple years.
Yeah, and now I'm getting my voice back, but I always had my attitude back.
Right. You were there, you just couldn't say it that well.
You never lost the attitude.
Sure. Once you know that hemp is the only thing that will save the fucking world. Well, I'm sorry.
That's why we have that disclaimer on the front of the show, you know, for things like that.
But okay. Well,
it's the plant that will save the planet.
50% to 80% of all food in the whole world was hemp until about 1850 to 1900. 50
it was the
to
main
80%.
illuminant or fuel for plants.
Out of 3 million plants, the number 1 to 100 in all the energy and vitamins and minerals is hemp. Until you get to 101 soybeans.
Yeah. Only soybeans aren't as digestible.
No.
Hemp protein actually meets human nutrition
No.
requirements.
No. It's 1,000% digestible by the whole human body.
Yeah. And it tastes good, too. You know what? We're going to fix the mic, and we have a phone call. Hello, caller. You are on our show.
Hello.
Hey, welcome.
I want to thank you, Paul, for the program. Thank you, Madeline. Thank you, Russ. And Mr. Hare, I want to thank you profusely for all that you have done. I want to thank you for the video. I've been watching it. It makes the cycle here on Portland Community Media, a couple, 3 times a year. It'll cycle through and play for a few weeks, and each and every time I alert the people at work, I alert anybody I know, you got to watch the program. It'll open your eyes. You'll learn a lot. And each and every time, Jack, I watch the program, I learn a little bit more, things that I didn't quite catch the time before. And I can't thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough.
Have you read the book?
No, I have not read the book.
It keeps getting bigger and bigger and better as time goes by and it gets re-edited.
And
what is this, like the 15th edition?
16th.
16th edition.
And I also want to thank Portland Community Media for having this program. I want to thank your crew, Paul, and I'll step aside and let some more callers in. Thanks again, Jack.
Go on down to the Third Eye on Hawthorne, and you can buy the book.
Okay. Thanks again.
And his family runs the store. Just in case you guys didn't know. I remember when you were first opening it, way back when.
1977.
Yeah, that was Heads and Highs, wasn't it? 77?
Well, no, it was me and Captain Ed.
Yeah.
We're partners, and we're still partners.
Yeah. Families are working together.
You know,
well, good.
Jack, one of the things that I wanted to thank you for while we're up here and get this opportunity is the work you did in unearthing the Hemp for Victory movie that the U.S. government put out. Because if there's just one way that we can turn to the government and know they're lying, it's right there in the film. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate it.
We got to get that on the news, Hemp for Victory, on the local news here, so we're pretty excited about that when we did Hemp Stock.
We play clips on it all the time.
Yeah,
every now and then. We have different clips we can run. Hey, if you're out there and you have a question tonight for Jack or Madeline, Russ, or myself, or even Tim Pate over there, give us a call at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. We'll be taking your calls for about another 35 minutes or so.
I want to remind everybody, Paul, that tomorrow's the Oregon Normal Cardholders Meeting, OMMP. And it is at Village Ballroom, 700 Northeast Deacom. And the doors open at 11 a.m. If you've got your state ID or driver's license and your OMMP card, you can come out there and pick up some cuttings and a little excess medicine and meet a bunch of other card holders and just enjoy our company. We have a social time, a meeting time, and we'll update you
on a lot of fun.
What's going on. Yeah,
there's the address right up there at 700 Northeast Deacom.
Yeah.
That's right off of MLK, about 3 blocks. I know our gardeners at THCF Medical Gardens have, I don't know, 75 or so foot-tall cuttings ready to go that will get a patient's garden going quite quickly. I know there's a lot of other people that bring cuttings, too. Yeah, there's a lot of other
people bringing cuttings. So come on out and pick up those cuttings tomorrow and get them home and get them ready for the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards. We're going to be having that December the 12th. I'm pretty excited about it. Danny Danko, cultivation editor for High Times, will be having a grow seminar. So we're really excited to teach people how to grow according to the Oregon normal law to stay within the guidelines. He's a great guy. I just got to meet him at Hemp Fest.
We have another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show. Hello, caller. Listen to your
hello there. Hey, I'm a new Portland resident to this area, and I've been on a morphine pump since 1986, and I got a new doctor out here, and this dude don't want to prescribe me my morphine because if I have any levels of THC in my system. And I've got a THC card from y'all up there already, you know, so.
Well, I recommend you go to OHSU. Their pain clinic there won't make you go without medical marijuana to treat your chronic pain condition. Now, we're hopeful that by taking cannabis, you'll be able to dramatically reduce the amount of morphine that you need to take. But, you know, for real severe conditions, you still might need that, especially for breakthrough pain. And it takes a while to wean yourself off that stuff, I know.
Yeah,
too.
I've been on it since '86.
Oh, yeah, it'll take you a while.
Yeah,
So
I'm on almost
going
800
cold turkey is
milligrams.
probably not an option. I would go to the OHSU folks up at Oregon Health Science University.
I'm trying to see if my girlfriend's recognized any of what you're saying, because I've just hey, Jack, I just want to, thank you for what you've done. You've done a lot in your lifetime, dude.
I'm still here.
You just talked to 250,000 people just on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty neat.
And
Oh, that's great, man.
He's still going strong.
Been through a lot, too. I see that, man.
Yeah.
Well,
I was a full cloud for 2
we're
years,
going
man.
to do an initiative in California in about 3 months. We'll start the initiative.
And that's
Yeah, well,
Richard Lee's legalized thing? No, it's another one.
No,
mine. It's your own. Oh, okay.
No, I have nothing to do with
that
Richard
Richard
Lee.
okay.
I wouldn't sign.
You wouldn't sign that one? Okay.
1 ounce. Whoa.
What, there's a 1 ounce limit in that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
I need more than that.
Hey, I had one of the first of the 50 cards they issued in California.
And he got $50 tax on
an ounce? Oh, that's outrageous.
Anyway, we were doing an initiative in California, 100,000% legalization of every type of pot there is. You can grow it from 1% to 100% THC. It'll be okay.
I want to see that plant. The 100% THC plant. One big crystal there.
Well, I'll tell you. I think about 25% of a gram every day, and I eat it.
Yeah.
But it huge doses of THC, and it's more than 100. It's almost 16 ounces of the prime bud dried. To 2 ounces of oil or teal.
You're talking about the Rick Simpson cancer healing
100
medicine oil.
and at 99%, and at least I thought it was 60% at the beginning, but it's 99%, and only on the 4 stages. The first stage, second stage, third stage, we didn't go because those are 100% curable.
So you're
the
talking about
fourth
cancer stage.
Yes, well, the first stage is cancer, the second stage is cancer, the third stage is cancer.
And so this oil kills the cancer.
Fourth stage, you're going to home to die because there's nothing else you can do there. And all those people, 1,500 of them, got
This
THC,
oil, high cannabinoid
huge
doses.
And they all 100% closed, saved, and they're never coming back again. For 7 years, not one person has got it back.
That's like a miracle, isn't it?
No, they have 2 days to 2 weeks to 2 months to live. And they all live 7 years now, and there's no trace of cancer anymore, and it's against the law in the United States for 37 years, and we got it in 1973, 74, and 75 in the Commonwealth of Virginia at Richmond. Get it?
They showed that it was useful to kill cancer back then.
100%.
Right.
Not skin cancer, melanoma cancer, brain cancer,
lung cancer, prostate cancer.
Yeah.
All these different cancers.
And 100%.
Right.
And it's what's great too. We've been reporting on this at Normal. We just had 3 stories in a row that came up on this, where people were researchers, of course, overseas.
I'm going to tell you, Normal for the last 7 years had said, "Oh, this guy doesn't have the cancer of Tyson." And I thought, everybody is wrong about this because I know it. 37 years ago, I wrote the fucking book on it.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is we're starting to find all of these.
I was there. I remember.
We're finding all this research that's coming out now that's just kind of nibbling around the edges here. We had a report on, they did a long-term cohort study of chronic marijuana smokers who've been smoking for 10 to 20 years and found that they had less incidence of head and neck cancer than people who don't smoke at all.
Yeah.
They find that the THC directly injected into prostate cancer cells in vivo or in vitro kills the prostate cancer cells. And we found and reported on how people that smoke marijuana, when they take a look at their lung function, their lungs are no worse off than people that don't smoke at all.
And so marijuana prohibition is truly evil. It's an evil, evil thing to deny people a cure from cancer, to deny our planet. I mean, it's earth medicine. That's what John Trudell was telling us a year ago here, that will solve a lot of our problems environmentally, a lot of our physical problems, a lot of our economic problems.
Okay. Cancer.
We're believers. You can tell that. We're going to run a little film clip here from the Seattle Hemp Fest. We'll be back in just a second, so enjoy.
All right, later, y'all.
Here it comes.
I'm standing here at Hemp Fest in Seattle with Keith Stropp, the founder of Normal, and thank you for that. And what do you think of this event?
It's my favorite event of the year. I travel around and do a number of these kinds of things, but there's nothing on the scale of the Seattle Hemp Fest other than the Seattle Hemp Fest. So for those who haven't seen it, it is incredibly empowering. And I think 12, 13 years now I've been coming in. I find it fascinating, and I think people in other parts of the country are beginning to pick up on that same phenomena. And the Boston Freedom Fest is coming up in the month, and that's a wonderful thing on the Boston Common with all the history associated with that. And in the Portland Hemp Sock. And that's about the middle of next month as well. I was there last year.
So 12th and 13th of September.
12th and 13th of September. If you're in the region at all and you identify with marijuana smokers or as marijuana smoking, for Christ's sake, come to this thing. You will find lots of people that are like-minded individuals like you. And as I say, you'll feel empowered by it.
Understanding that we're doing here. Peace, love, and understanding.
Save your seeds. It doesn't take a miracle to cultivate the weeds.
You can't sell brownies. You can't sell pot. You can't sell Rice Krispies at Hemp Fest. Why? Because we know how to keep this thing going, and that will bring us down. We have an unprecedented amount of freedom here. No other city in the world, no other rally in America especially. I don't think anybody in the world is doing quite what we're doing. So please understand, we do not want to be the narcs, man.
We arrested our 20 millionth American on marijuana charges. Are you ready for 420? In the midsummer, the state of California determined that it would be missing $1.4 billion in taxes if we didn't legalize it in California. Probably 10 times that many nationally.
We've helped almost 100,000 people in 8 states, get a medical marijuana permit. So that means they can legally possess, use, and grow medical marijuana. Medical marijuana is a great step forward, but it's not the end. What we need to do is end adult marijuana prohibition, restore industrial hemp, and help medical marijuana patients.
The man who started it all, Jack Herer.
Hemp will be the future of all mankind, or there won't be a future.
It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, we're going to legalize marijuana no matter what happens in 10 years, because when 60% of the American public wants something, they're going to get it.
Contact your legislators. Tell them end marijuana prohibition. It's time to tax and regulate it. The more letters they get like that, the sooner the day will arrive.
We're going to legalize marijuana!
Peaceful. Look at this. It doesn't have any. What if this was a drink fest, alcohol fest, meth fest, heroin fest, cocaine fest? There'd be dead people here. There'd be fights. There'd be stabbings. But it's pot fest. It's hemp fest. We are proud. We are loud. Give me names. E-M-P. What do we want?
I freaking love Hempfest. Hempfest is the shit. Hempfest is badass. Go Hempfest!
September 12th and 13th, Portland, Kelly Point Park. Yay, please come. Everybody's welcome.
Okay,
Very
well,
nice.
thanks,
Very
Brandon.
nice.
Good job, Brad. That was a nice little clip there.
Wasn't that beautiful? You did such a great job.
You did too. We're going to have some more clips with your
I know.
speeches in there next week. We're going to get a whole tape show next week. It's going to be so I can hang out with my family on the East Coast. We'll have a tape show next week, and we've got the whole thing. Clips from the Seattle Hemp Fest.
Excellent. Good. That's going to be great because so many people here don't get to go attend.
That's
you know,
right.
and I tell people once you go, you're hooked for life.
There were one or two shots that give you an idea of the breadth of the crowd, but at one point there, it was just more crowded than I've ever seen it.
Right.
I think there were 350,000 people in the park that one day.
I know, on
and
the
about
Saturday.
half that number the next day.
Yeah, on the Saturday when they had that pinch point, people were trying to get out, and there was literally at least 8,000 to 10,000 people in this one constricted area, shoulder to shoulder, and you could not move. You could not get through the crowd at all. And yet,
and I heard it was that way all over.
Yeah.
It wasn't just.
It wasn't just there, but where I was, and I was
I
trying
heard
to
at
get
the
back with
McWilliams
Tim.
stage and the Sealy stage,
Yeah.
at about 4 to 5 o'clock, you couldn't move.
Yeah, I had to go from the Sealy stage all the way on the north side of the park, all the way to the Hemposium stage on the south side, carrying my bass. And I'm stuck in that crowd. And the thing that really struck me is that even though that there was 10,000 of us in this crowd, shoulder to shoulder, and it's hot, nobody was out of line. Nobody was pushing or shoving. Nobody was cursing or getting angry. Everybody was really cool, and that's the vibe that I love about Hemp Fest. Is that, you know, like it's like Vivian was saying, if this was Alcohol Fest, there'd have been a fist fight.
Yeah, exactly.
We're also passive. You know, we just want to smoke our medicine and enjoy life.
So, Jack, you've been to many of these things. Was that the biggest one yet?
Yeah, it was the biggest one yet.
I think, you know, it was the same weekend as 40 years ago Woodstock, and I think we were at least as big and maybe bigger than the Woodstock Nation there. We have our Hemp Nation now. And,
I want to say, I don't understand why all those people can park.
Well, they teach them, don't park, you know, ride the bus, get your rides. And so a lot of folks come down, and I parked behind our booth one day, but that was another story.
Yeah, for another time.
Yeah, right.
That was fun. I think everybody had a great time. Everyone I spoke to that went to HempFest just loves it and wants to go back every year.
Yeah.
It's the family reunion for all of us.
It is. It's a meeting of the marijuana movement.
This weekend again?
Yeah, there's the Olympia Hemp Fest, which takes place right.
My other organization is VOTE, Victory Over the Enemy.
Hey, I like that.
Which is the unregistered voter in the state of California.
Oh, okay.
What we have to do is upgrade our standard of voting. We can send people to the moon, and we're sending satellites into outer space. I believe that our system of voting in this country is very antiquated, very old. It needs to be renewed and revised and updated. I think that the voting should be more important than Christmas.
Okay.
I think that we should spend a lot of money on educating the people. Look at it this way. The government is in favor of the United States public to vote. I feel that it's our duty to show them or to find a way to help the government find ways to help people vote. And I think with television, the telephone, computer optics, and satellite dishes and all this technology that we've got, we should be able to sit home and vote on all these important issues. And I'm sure the government wants everybody to vote. It's our constitutional right, and they stand behind it. I think that they should get behind us and help us to get out there and make voting a very important issue. It is important, even if you're not in favor of, say, the California Marijuana Initiative or the Hemp Initiative, that's fine. We would love for you to come out and speak your opinion. We want you out there voting. We want you to take an active part in this country. If you do, then I think this will solve the problem.
I want to thank you guys for watching. We're going to go out on another great song by Mr. John Coronet. We'll be back next week and help us restore hemp.
Yeah, restore hemp.
Another chapter as we turn the page. We exist within a Ukraine. I know that freedom's heard around the globe. Just where our future lies will nobody know. Oh, let's make the best of it now. 'Cause you never know when the sky will fall. Maybe the moon will reach the earth one day. We're not the same race that we used to be. Can't you see? Now the next time that you fall in